All right, so when it comes to criticism of the Democratic Party, trust me, we can probably have hours upon hours of conversation talking about the failures of the entire Democratic Party. Okay, trust me, they have a long history. But one thing that I'm pretty sure we all can agree on is they are stuck in this mindset, like this one gear mentality. You know, if anyone's have ever driven a manual car, I don't. I drive automatic, but I can imagine a car that's having just one gear. You only can go in park and first gear. You ain't got no neutral. You ain't got nothing else. Just park and first. That would be annoying. You would not want to continue to ride that car. And it feels like that's kind of the state of the old guard in the Democratic Party. You know, the old heads. And, you know, I don't have no problem with my old folks, but I'm just saying, like, when you are stuck in an era, you're stuck in that era. For example, in my R&B playlist, I got things from Avant, Genuine, Neo to Mario. That's it. Like from like the 80s R&B to the early 2000s R&B. That is it. I don't need no more. I don't need to explore new music. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go back to Beethoven. Like, you know, I ain't trying to go that far back. I am happy with my playlist. I got about 3 days worth of music. I'm good. I don't need to listen to nothing else. But that is okay when it comes to your own personal music. That's what you want to listen to. That's cool. But that doesn't work for politics. Our politics need to evolve with the times, with your voters. If your mindset is stuck in the 80s, in 2025, you're going to be missing the point every single time. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and all the other ones. You see what I'm saying? And here's some examples. When it comes to politics, it needs to be to evolve along with your voters' needs. Like back in the 80s, supporting workplace protections based on race and sex was progressive. That was the extreme progressive. As they would say, the far left, the woke left. LGBTQ protections were extremely controversial. That would have been considered too far left back in the 70s and 80s. If you was to say something like that, they think you crazy. You see what I'm saying? But now, today, that's like the bare minimum. If you don't support something like that, they're going to call you crazy and just disregard you. You see what I'm saying? Like that is square one to anything politics today. But now today, this is the baseline policy. Today, what is considered too far left or too progressive is Medicare for all. Every other country is doing it. But you tell Republicans or tell the established Democrats, that's too far left. That's doing too much. We can't do it. We got to take little baby steps. You know, we got to take little baby steps. That's too radical. But I want to see this in 20 years, in 50 years. Is it going to be the norm, or is this going to continue to be something that's too far left for some people? But without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to Sam Seder, one of my OGs. Okay, I never met him, but I've been watching him for the past, like 14 years. So one of the OGs, and he is talking to I've Had It podcast.
And they have to travel to another state to
Hey, calm down. Okay, let's rewind this. Let's see what they're talking about.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
It's really been an interesting, I've always been a Democrat, but it's really been an interesting journey for me as I've seen establishment Democrats like set us up to a position to lose, because I hate losing and I really love beating Republicans.
Yeah.
And we lost to a fucking moron twice. And then you look into that and you realize what the problem is, and then you start realizing a bunch of the corporate media that you've believed and that you have held dear was all bullshit.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. Yeah, I mean, I think I've been doing this now for over 20 years.
You're an antique.
I am very old, and I feel older than that. But and when I started off, it was in the aughts, and it was in the run up to the Bush. The George W. Bush re-election in 2004. Mm-hmm. And to watch Democrats always operate from a defensive crouch was extremely frustrating at that time. And there was
when John Kerry got swift voted.
Yeah, when John Kerry got swift.
And that's a good point. I just want to make this quick. Once again, this is political commentary, so I got to do my commentary thing. I just started voting when Obama, his first administration. Like, I'm only 38. So to hear someone like Sam Seder say that Democrats have always played the defensive game. They've like why? Like, can you tell me why? Tell me why ain't nothing. Okay. Tell me why and when and how and where can Democrats get a set of balls to be on the attack, to actually play some offense and not always play defense? You see what I'm saying? They've been doing this before me. So we just expect them to eventually change, just wake up one morning and be like, you know what? I'm going to wake up and actually do my job today. I'm actually going to not accept no for the first answer. They're not going to just wake up and do that. I'm sorry. So that should tell you something.
That time. And there was
when John Kerry got swift voted.
Yeah, when John Kerry got swift voted. But, when I think of that election, I also think of John Kerry windsurfing off the coast of Nantucket in August. And I'm thinking, I had left the show business because I had this opportunity to do talk radio. And I thought this is, arguably the most important election of my lifetime. And I thought he could have just waited 3 or 4 months. I mean, granted, he'd have to maybe go to Bermuda or something like that to do his windsurfing. But there's a lack of urgency, I think, by Democrats. And I think a lack of understanding, particularly with a specific sort of, I want to say a generation, but it's not just a function of age. It's a function of, I think, when they learned politics. For me, every 90% of the music I listened to was basically from an 8-year period from when I was high school into a couple of years out of college. That's basically where I'm stuck on. And I feel like there were a lot of politicians who were stuck on a certain era and were operating under that that understanding of politics.
And he says something good here.
Politics, for me, every 90% of the music I listened to was basically from an 8-year period. I want to say a lack of urgency, I think, to do his windsurfing, but there's a lack of urgency, I think.
Lack of urgency. Lack of urgency. That is the key phrase right there. If you can just wrap up 2024's summary of that electoral outcome was lack of urgency. And like I told people in the Discord, because we talked about this a few weeks ago, and once again, join the Discord if you want to have these substantive conversations. But if Democrats, liberals, the establishment, if they would have met the situation and matched its urgency with the policies, that would have made a difference. You need to do everything in your power to keep this racist POS out of office, you need to pull out the full stop here. You need to pull out the goods. You know, when you go out on that first date, you bust out the good pants. You take out the church shoes. You buy some new grease to do your hair. You buy a new shirt if you need to. You bring your best. And the Democrats did not do that. So once again, matching. If Trump was a threat, you need to match it. I mean, damn, offer anything and everything. You don't hold nothing back. But hey, we're here now.
Like that to do as windsurfing, but there's a lack of urgency, I think, by Democrats, and I think a lack of understanding, particularly with a specific sort of, I want to say a generation, but it's not just a function of age. It's a function of, I think, when they learned politics. You know, like for me, every 90% of the music I listened to was basically from like an 8-year period from when I was like, high school into like a couple years out of college. That's basically where I'm stuck on. And I feel like there were a lot of politicians who were stuck on a certain era and were operating under that that understanding of politics. And the Republican Party is not who the Republican Party was, 30 or 40 years ago. And so I think we are stuck with Democrats who are largely in the leadership, who don't understand the moment that they're in and are just not up to the moment that they're in. And I think like you can lose well. Right? I mean, in the aughts, we were dealing in the wake of 9/11. There was reason why, people were cowed and people were nervous and people were largely in shock, I think. But Democrats didn't even know how to lose well in a way that made it clear, like, who's responsible for what policies, and we're willing to fight for these other policies, even if we don't have the strength to win now. So it's
And that reminds me of what just happened a few months ago. It feels like a few months ago. Was it like a month ago when the whole government was shut down and Democrats were seemingly to stand on business? And we knew it was going to be a long shot. We knew it. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew at some point the Democrats was going to have to take an L, which is fine. But like Sam said, you can lose in a respectable way. You can lose and be like, not look like that punk who just got whooped and mollywopped, behind a school. You can lose gracefully, be like, you know what? Hey, you tried. I know everything was stacked against you, but you tried. You didn't just, beg on your knees. But then look what happened. Centrist Democrats, and I think it was one independent. What did they do? All right, Trump, we give in. We give in as long as you pinky promise me. Come on, pinky promise, please. Pinky promise, Trump. And they got conned, especially in the light of what's going on today. Republicans are not going to renew the ACA subsidies. They're not going to do it. They're going to give us some bull crap, which I got to look into more. But we got played. Democrats got played. And we knew it was going to be an uphill battle, but it looks even worse now. You look even worse, which is like, how is that possible? But they always find a way to lose and look ugly doing it.
It's frustrating, and welcome to the party. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I remember I was raised Republican, evangelical Christian, registered as Republican, apathetic Republican is what I would say. But what I remember about the John Kerry thing, which when you were talking about, that's when you kind of entered this realm. I remember what a big mess they made of his wife being rich.
Yeah.
And now I look at it and I think his cabinet is all billionaires.
But more than that, here's where I knew, and I should have known then, but I still went along with the Democratic corporate position. John Kerry was a war hero. And he was swift-boated by draft dodgers.
Yeah.
By George W. Bush, the dumb one, the son, and Dick Cheney, who went predatorial style into poor neighborhoods to recruit the poorest people into the military, sent their sons and daughters to Iraq. Not, John Kerry, who wouldn't even stand up for, not John Kerry, Dick Cheney, who wouldn't even stand up for his own lesbian daughter. And what you said, Sam, that they operated from a defensive crouch. John Kerry did that to a T. And I remember my husband and we would stay up and watch Jon Stewart every night, because when you live in the Bible Belt and you're surrounded by people that think George W. Bush is so smart, you really have to tap the vein with, media that makes you feel like you're not going fucking crazy. So we watched Jon Stewart every night. Jon Stewart was peak then when he was bashing George W. Bush. And it just infuriated me that John Kerry then, who actually went and served in combat in Vietnam. My dad served in Vietnam. These people are damaged from that. There's a whole generation of dads out there that have PTSD and they were never allowed to deal with it because then you're a pussy if you go to a therapist. And they raised all of us. And Dad, I love you. Thank you for your service. But there is a lot there to the people that made it back home. And the fact that the Democratic Party, that's how much they fought back on that. It really pissed me off.
They were afraid. I mean, the reason why Kerry was vulnerable to that is because he really led with that, in the convention, for instance. Like, I don't know if you remember that 2004 convention, but it was so over the top, promoting his military service. And that, frankly, that was not the impressive thing about John Kerry. What was impressive about John Kerry is he came back and testified in front of the Senate and said, who's going to be the last man to die for a mistake in Vietnam? And that was what was impressive about John Kerry as a young man.
Exactly.
And but they were so afraid of being seen as weak in the war on terror that they had to sort of get out in front of their skis. And John Kerry basically made it possible for the swift boating to have an impact on him.
Let me ask you this.
And that right there, and history is a beautiful thing. You don't have to have been, actively in a political conversation back in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s to learn about the history. Like, just listen to folks talk about it. And our experience that we're going to be telling our kids and our grandkids and our, great grandkids is like the Democratic Party were still cowards. They had a chance to stand on business, and then, like always, they punk out. It is in their DNA, not the person DNA, but like the structure of the Democratic Party. Like I told you, liberals have to operate in a box. It's a small, tiny, depressing looking box. And that's all the room that they have to work in. So what do you expect? So at some point, as a progressive, once again, I am a progressive. So you're going to get a progressive point of view here. At some point, progressives need to take over the wheel. Tell grandma to get out the driver's seat. The speed limit is 55 and she going 30. Not even 35. In the fast lane. So be like, hey, grandma, I love you. Go ahead, sit in the passenger. Here's a crossword for you. Let me drive. Don't worry about what's going on. Let me drive. And we need to put the metal to the floor. We need to be all gas, no brakes at some point because people are hurting. And just taking baby steps that they always want to offer is not going to get us to the point to where we need to be. It's like a football game, fourth quarter, 2-minute warning. You're on the opponent's 10-yard line. You're way back there. We ain't worried about no 2 yards here, 3 yards here, 2 yards here. No, we need to start throwing some bombs at some point. That's where we're at as a party. Tell me I'm lying. That easy.
I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy.